So first off, I want to apologize if anything comes out weird because this is my first ever time doing, you know, doing videos on YouTube and stuff like that. So, like I said, I just want to apologize in advance. Um, Also, too, I've been wanting to do this for a long time as well because, I love the sport of boxing. I took a year of lessons when I was in high school at the time. I have a cousin who retired a couple years ago. Shout out to my cousin Mikey. And I also been watching the sport for a long time as well with my father. So I have a big, strong connection with boxing. I love the sport of boxing so much that I wanted to do something like this for a while. So, like I said, I might not have a huge knowledge compared to a lot of people on YouTube or even like the biggest sportscasters, obviously, but enough for me to say that I have a passion for boxing. But anyways, um, I want to talk about two fights. I was going to do one, but I feel like that, if I talk about one fight, it's not going to be longer of a video, so I kind of want to stretch it a little bit. And the first one I want to talk about is, uh, Xander Zayas versus um, Xander Zayas versus Boots. And obviously, I'm going for Xander Zayas. Saying me being half Puerto Rican, I'm always going to root for the Puerto Rican fighters. And you know what I'm saying? And a lot of us Puerto Ricans are so passionate about watching our fighters who represent the country of Puerto Rico, from the Trinidad's to the Miguel Cottos, which I loved watching growing up, and then the current ones like Xander Zayas and Berlangas, Matias. Even though Matias is kind of on that weird situation where he has, what I'm saying, I don't know if he lost like 2 or 3 fights in a row or something like that, but he's kind of on a slump, so I don't know where he's gonna be. And then Belangas, as much as I love Belangas when it comes to his trash talks and stuff like that, when it comes in his promos and in the press conferences, but it's just I don't know, man. I was really hoping more from him. I really was. Um, he's in Zuffa boxing, which I mean, if he does well there, then maybe that could be like a kind of like a way for him to get back into becoming a bigger name again and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how that's gonna be. Um, but looking at Xander Zayas, I think he's definitely a a very tough competitor. And I've seen Xander Zayas fight through the distance, sometimes get knockouts. And I know that people kind of look at Xander Zayas as, well, he hasn't fought the bigger names, and I understand that, I do, and I'm not going to debunk that. But when I look at Xander Zayas, I'm looking at a guy who's still young, still got a long ways to go, and also a fighter who can still put up an entertaining fight, regardless if he wins or loses. And they said about Crawford. I'm not trying to compare Crawford and Zayas. I'm comparing that when it comes to situations where people say, "Oh yeah, he hasn't fought the bigger names," and they fight the bigger names, and they can prove him right or they can prove him wrong. So it's hard for me to take the judgment of saying that he hasn't fought the bigger names, yet. He hasn't gone there yet. So when he gets there, we'll see at the test, where he passes or fails. Um, but I think that Zayas has got great cardio, can last like 12 rounds most of the time, like I mentioned before. Um, and what I also love about Zayas is he definitely has power. Now, I don't know if he has the power to knock down a guy like Boots, because Boots is a very tough fighter. I've been watching Boots for a while, and there was a fight that I totally forgot about until I saw like the closer look on like other YouTuber videos and stuff like that, where he was doing like this slow motion, kind of like a movie, just like slow mo, boom, moving, boom. Like it wasn't crazy. You guys can look it up if you want. It's a really fun fight. Um, you know, so I think this will be the biggest test for Zayas, but I don't know if this is going to be a test where he's going to get demolished or get, outperformed. I don't think that's going to be the case. I see this being a close fight. If Zayas can't knock him out in, you know, in the middle rounds, then he's got to win by decision. Boots, I could see Boots getting a good shot, a good freaking punch like in the earlier rounds and stuff. I don't know if he will knock him out, but he's gonna give Zayas a run for his money. And like I said, me being a Puerto Rican does not mean that I'm going to be super biased with fighters. I'm gonna give both sides, a fair share, because you know, if I be biased, then it's not fair for me to even talk about fights like this, you know. So I think this is going to be very entertaining. I'm hoping it'll be fight of the year. I think they're both great fighters that can definitely put out that kind of fight, you know. So if I was going to say something about Boots of how he would win, I could see him maybe winning maybe TKO 7th round, maybe. You know, he could definitely, you know, keep, you know, pushing him and stuff like that to the later rounds. So you know, in my heart and you know, in my personality, I'm always going to be rooting for the Puerto Rican fighters. So Zayas is definitely for me to root for. It's just going to be very interesting of how he might try to pull it off. And the other fight that I want to talk about, like I said, I'm trying to stretch it out a little bit. It's Errol Spence Jr. versus Tszyu. I don't know if I'm saying the name right. You know, I got the name up here. I'm trying to like figure out if I can pronounce it. But you know, Tim. My father has told me a lot of stories about Tim and how his father was just incredible. You know, I'm gonna watch some of his highlights later. You know, because you know his father being such a great fighter, he also did great with Tim, and he's becoming like a really big deal. You know, Errol Spence. I don't know if Errol Spence is really recovered mentally. I should say. Sorry, not mentality. Sorry. I don't know if he recovered mentally from the loss of Crawford. You know, that was a good fight though. Me and my father were going crazy that night. But with Errol Spence, it depends if he's able to, you know, surpass that mentality and try to focus on the next fight after that. So I don't know who he fought. My mind is very slipping, you know, but I don't remember who he fought after Crawford. But I'll check those out. I'll get a closer look at that for sure. So, like I said before, that I love boxing, but I might not have like the huge knowledge like everybody else does. With Tim, I love Tim, but my biggest problem with Tim is he's too much of a brawl, and that's one of those things where it's going to maybe affect him in the long run when it comes to taking a lot of damages. Because when he fought Fundora, he was so blooded up. It was just shocking of how crazy the blood was coming out of both of their heads. Like, it was just all over the place. So I'm hoping that if Tim, you know, fights with Errol Spence, if he tries to focus more on defense and less of offense and try to keep himself, you know, intact where he doesn't have to get like a doctor stoppage. So that's the thing where I'm kind of looking at with Tim. And like I said, Errol Spence he's young. He's got a long ways to go. He's very talented, and I think that Errol Spence could win maybe by decision. You know, I can see the fight going through the distance. It's going to be a good fight. I'm really excited for that one as well. I also forgot to mention when it comes to Boots and Zayas, the winner of that, they saying will fight Fundora. And that's going to be fucking hard because there's very, very few people. Actually, there's only one person that's beat Fundora. And I don't know if anyone can do that again. I don't think there's anyone that can beat Fundora like that, like how that happened. Like, because the only way I can see people beating Fundora, like the guy that actually beat him a couple years ago, is going into him. Because when you fight for distance, obviously you're not going to reach him. So the only way you can do it is if you fight into him. Now, fighters are sometimes scared when they fight into a person, where they can get hit with a massive uppercut or a massive hook where it just rocks them hard. So pause. But it's just very interesting to see how that will lead up to the future when it comes to, you know, fighting Fundora. Because a lot of these guys, it's very hard to beat Fundora. So if Boots is able to go into him and try to hit him hard, he could knock him out. And when it comes to Zayas, I can see Zayas maybe going through distance with Fundora. I don't think he's going to knock him out because that's gonna be, like I said, it's super hard to knock out someone that's very tall and a very long reach like him. It's just hard. It really is. So I think this is going to be very interesting when it comes to those two fights. With Tim maybe getting a rematch if he beats Errol Spence, and like I said, one of the two guys that fights between the fight with Zayas and Boots fight Fundora. it's interesting to see like what outcome it could be. That's another great thing about this situation is the outcome of if they're able to if there's able to like come up with this crazy prediction of the future. So that's why I'm excited for both of these fights. But anyways, like I said, that's just my thoughts, and you guys can put your thoughts in the comments below. And I guess I'll see you in the next video.